Everyone undervalues podcasts. Downloads mean zero in this world, and 90% were useful idiots. The ones selling the shovel made all the money.
This is Monetize This. I'm David Beckmeyer. Everybody has a podcast now. At least that's the joke. And somewhere along the way, podcasting became this weird contradiction where half the internet treats it like a meaningless hobby, while the other half is trying to sell you a 7-step masterclass on how to turn your podcast into a 6-figure media empire by next Thursday. And meanwhile, most podcasters are just sitting there in the closet talking into a microphone, wondering if anybody even heard the episode. So today's guest is Rory Paquette. Rory calls himself a podcast advocate, which already tells you this is not going to be one of those optimize your funnel and crush your metrics conversations. We talk about why podcasters feel undervalued, why downloads might matter less than we think, why podcasting conferences sometimes feel like gold rushes where everybody's selling shovels, and whether the industry has accidentally convinced creators they should be grateful to work for free. And look, I don't agree with Rory on everything. Actually, that's part of why I wanted to have this conversation. Because underneath all the monetization talk, this episode is really about something bigger. What makes podcasting worth doing in the first place? So here's my conversation with Rory Paquette. Rory Paquette, thank you so much for making time for our show.
Oh, my pleasure, man. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate that you had me on your Podcaster Nation show a while back. That was cool. So tell us a little bit about, I think you have a handful of shows or maybe more. Tell us a little bit about your shows and kind of where would you like to send people to find out more?
I appreciate that. I have 10 shows altogether, and it's I do this for a living. I'm one of the people who, everybody hates because I do it for a living, but I don't do it by ripping everybody else off and telling them they're wrong. So, hopefully that helps. My top shows are Power of Man, which is my number one show, and that's helping fathers and husbands just be more accountable, and a little more aware, of what they're doing. Podcaster Nation. The Podcaster Nation, which you were on. Loved having you on as a guest. And we feature podcasters. They come on and get to talk about themselves, their shows, and what they did behind the scenes. And then the third one, that in terms of size and popularity, is Wake Up the Lions. And that's a place for folks to come on and, give their testimony, and talk about how God's influenced their lives and things like that. So I have 7 other ones, and they're all growing, and I won't waste your time with all of the other 7. But any of those you can find me at. So
that's great. Yeah, well, that's awesome. So you call yourself a podcaster advocate, I believe. So, you've talked about how podcasting or podcasters are undervalued. And so who is undervaluing podcasters? Is it, the industry or podcasters themselves, or how would you characterize that?
Yeah, great question. Everyone undervalues podcasts. We undervalue ourselves as podcasters. We don't believe that we have value. You can have, if I don't have 10,000 episodes, then I'm told that I'm useless and that my podcast isn't worth it. If I'm not monetized, then I have people tell me I'm not legit. I have guests who come on who expect me to do a great job hosting, give them this awesome marketing piece, of a podcast where I show them as the expert that they want to be portrayed as. They're going to share that. They're going to use that to help their business, but they don't think that there's any value there. I should just provide it for them because they think podcasters are just running a free service like we're a charity. So, I think everybody does. But the worst devaluing of podcasters comes from the top. And that's the folks who are kind of running our business, who are in charge of our business. I get in trouble with this a lot, but those folks, it's okay for them to make money. But then if you're not giving away all your services, they chastise you for that. If they tell you how it should be done, and if you don't do it their way, then they go, hey, you're doing it wrong. And you're kind of like, wait a minute. So I think everybody undervalues podcasters, including ourselves.
So yeah, it's interesting because I think there's some truth to that for sure. I know the world, there's so many perceptions of what a podcast is and what they do. And, there's kind of that perception as it's just a running joke, that, oh, you have a podcast or everybody's got a podcast or don't you have a podcast yet or whatever. And I think it's easy to forget how much work goes into these things, how much care goes into these things, and how much quality information is coming out of podcasts, because everybody thinks it's just a couple guys on a couch talking about sports, which is fine. That's great. Those are good shows too. But sometimes there's actually a lot of research going in and some quality guests and quality content that just kind of gets passed over sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's funny because if you're a business owner and I come to you and I say, hey, David, give me 100 of your business cards. I'm going to go hand those business cards out myself to people that are interested in your business, who want the business card, and who are going to spend at least a few minutes looking over your brochure. And I'll tell you what, I'll do that for you. Just give me $20. Is that cool? Would you at least think about doing that?
Sure.
Probably, right? At least you would consider it. But if I said, hey, I average 250 listeners per episode, and we have a $25 sitting fee, in order to sit for it, you're going to probably lose your mind and think that I'm robbing you blind and that it's totally inappropriate that I just tried to charge you that fee, right? Exact same thing. Exact same thing. All I'm doing is taking your message and putting it out to X number of people for you. If you could do it yourself, you wouldn't need me. You wouldn't want to be a guest on my show. But if I tried to say, hey, I have some value, you're going to tell me, no, you don't. That's the plight that podcasters are in right now.
Yeah. So I guess I do want to talk about, you talk about monetizing, having like a strategy for people to monetize. But we talked about it on another episode. This number has come up a lot, that sort of 90% of podcasts make almost nothing, or certainly not enough to live on. Mm-hmm. So how do those two things kind of resolve each other?
Well, it's tough because part of the reason that there's 90-something% of podcasters, I heard you and Dave talking about it, actually, Dave Campbell on one of your other shows, and about how most stats are made up type thing, but that's a real one. I think it is like 92% of podcasters don't make a dime, at all. But one of the reasons they don't is because they don't think they can. The entire industry is set up to say, if you don't have this equipment, if you don't do the show this way, if you don't have X number of downloads, then you can't. Then they turn around and they go, but if you're gonna, here's the way you do it. You run these stupid little ads, right, through, your Buzzsprouts or these other platforms. Or, you run a 5-second thing on this platform and they pay you 5 cents. We were reduced to buy me a coffee, right? That's what podcasters resort to, right? Is that kind of thing. Hey, please buy me a cup of coffee for my efforts. And there's nothing wrong with that. My problem is that we deserve more than that. We're worth more than just buy me a coffee. But that's what we're reduced to in our industry. And again, it comes from the top down. There are platforms out there that, you can pay to be on them, and you can get paid to, have people come on, right? So as a host, you get paid to do the interview through that platform. As a guest, you have to pay to have access to all these podcasts to get on there and actually interview, right? But a podcaster isn't allowed to charge. Right. And if he tries, then the guest says, well, you know what? I shouldn't have to pay to be on a podcast. Bro, you just did. You pay a monthly fee for the service to even have your name come in front of my desk. You know what I mean? But to pay a podcaster is just blasphemous. So I teach people how to monetize because everybody has a way to monetize. Everybody has a way to monetize. And you can start it as simple as, $20 here, $20 there, part-time income, side hustle. And I'm not trying to sell a program, okay? But everybody has a way to monetize because you have a brand. You have somebody listening to your show, even if it's 10 people. Doesn't make any difference. Maybe someone will, give you a free thing of coffee, or maybe somebody will swap services with you. I have a guy that I coach who went out and he gets free haircuts. In order for talking about the guy's barbershop on his podcast. Brother, that's monetization. That haircut costs $20. He makes $20 a month.
Wait, where do you get a haircut for $20? I think my people charge like 60 or more.
Yeah, are you in Canada? See, we have in the States, in some of our places anyway, we have these old time barbers that still have like the pole out front, with the red and the white and the blue. And I only pay $15 for mine, man.
There you go. Now I got to find that guy. They seem like that's a lost art in our area. Well, right. Everybody's a stylist now.
Yeah, I don't have enough hair to go to a stylist, man. Really don't.
Me neither. Yeah, well, we'll definitely talk a little bit more about some of the monetized side. I wanted to also talk about some of the hard truths about podcasting too, because I think a lot of people do, a lot of the pod fade can happen because your expectations, were just not aligned with the reality of podcasting.
Anybody who comes into this and goes, I'm going to do this to make money is on the wrong track already. You're going to fail. You're not going to make it. Because if the reason you're doing it is to make money, you'll never get there. The success in podcasting is you're doing something because you love doing it. You're doing something because you are called to share a message or you're trying to help somebody. There's lots of reasons to do it, but the reason can't be to get paid. This is not the platform for that. It's just not. And I mean, I would be willing to bet if there was an actual real stat, I would be willing to bet that 100% of the people who get into the business and say, I'm doing it because I want to make money are out of the business before 20 episodes hit. So I'd be willing to bet that that's a stat someplace.
Yeah. Well, either that or they really changed that. They changed that mantra pretty quick, right?
Exactly. So that's no longer my real reason. Let me change my answer.
Well, let's talk about defining success a little bit, because I think that's another important piece of all this is that, our one metric that everybody seems to know about is downloads, right? Like that's the one metric that that's the first question anyone asks you, right? That's nobody ever asks these other things, like you were just talking about, kind of get your message out there, these other kind of metrics that we can measure success by. Nobody asks about those, right? It's always downloads. So, I mean, what's some of your thoughts on that? Like, how do we, because I mean, they matter some, like, I guess you're not getting your message out there if you only have 3 listeners, but if you have 3 super passionate listeners, you're still getting a message out there. So, it's hard to have those, what are some of your thoughts just on what's a way to think about those numbers and not feel like a failure when you look at a number, and whatever the number is, not feel like a failure? Because I've seen this in spaces where, like, it's never enough. Like, it was 100, it wasn't enough. It was 1,000, it wasn't enough. 10,000, it wasn't enough. 50,000 wasn't enough. It's like it's never enough.
Right. I love, that's a great question. And I'm going to give you something that I hope somebody hears. The only time the number of downloads you have matters is if the number is 0. That's it. Okay. If you have even one person listening to you, then you're doing something somewhere. Okay. Now, here's the thing. And this is it's a quick little story. But when I first started Power of Man, it was the first podcast I ever did. I had a men's group that I was building, in a group online, just like everybody tries to do, right? And we had one episode come out, it was about bullying. And I was getting all kinds of comments on this topic of bullying, right? And there were guys that were talking about, I can't believe you went through this. I can't believe this happened to you, yada, yada, yada. And when I looked at the comments, I had over 200 comments, okay? Then I went back and I said, all right, how many guys are in this? And there were over 100 guys, right? Well, it's funny because I had 24 downloads on the episode. So all these guys are commenting about this. They're all following the podcast. They all care about the brand. They all care about what I had to say that they may have heard from somebody else. I don't know. But only 24 downloads on the podcast. So that means only 24 of you cats actually hit play. And the other 75 plus are all commenting on it and involved in it in this group. And you didn't even really listen to it. Downloads had nothing to do with the impact that I had with 100 guys in that moment. Nothing, but having the podcast did. Having the podcast, putting it out there, and just putting out, this is what the message is about. And all of a sudden, guys who cared had something to say. So we cannot measure our worth, our value, whether or not we're making a difference based on a download number. Because very often, just advertising that you have the podcast on, social media, for instance, is going to get you 10 or 15 comments about it from people who will never click the link to listen. And maybe you're influencing them because in the title of your podcast, you gave them some validation that day. Downloads mean 0 in this world. And to be honest, you don't even need them to sell advertising on them. It's old school thinking, and it's designed to keep us in this box where we have to keep buying new crap from the people who are trying to keep a hold on us and keep us in the box. I have no tolerance for the upper echelon of our industry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've got to hit you with a couple of the standard stuff we often talk about. So I want to wrap up with a couple of these. What's the worst advice you hear? I mean, kind of related to what you were just saying. What's the worst advice you hear at podcast conferences?
That you have to that you have to buy the newest thing. That you have to have the sharpest picture, or you have to have the best equipment. That stuff. Brother, grab a phone and talk into it. And if somebody cares, they're good. They don't care. what equipment you're using. Only the people selling the equipment care, and they want you to care. So I think that's the biggest lie that I get, is that your equipment matters that much.
Right. So I guess, so another one maybe I'll wrap up with is, is there a sort of an uncomfortable truth about podcasting that sort of no one wants to say out loud?
I love that one. There are a lot of uncomfortable truths about podcasting. The uncomfortable truth about podcasting is that we are taken advantage of. We are taken advantage of horribly by everybody. And the fact of the matter is that we go out and we do this because we want to do things. Our guests come on, and it has shifted so badly that we have guests come on now who don't feel like they need to share our podcast sometimes, because they're only coming on so that we share it and they get access to our audience. And when you actually ask them, I want you to share it to your audience, they get offended. And they're like, well, why would I give you access to my audience? And I'm like, bro, I just interviewed you for 45 minutes. Are you here right now? The perception of our industry has fallen so badly because of what we've allowed, that we literally don't have value to too many people right now. And people don't want to hear that. People don't want to understand that. We think that there's a certain amount of respect we should have because we're putting out hundreds of episodes of a show. And you know what? You should. We should have that. And this is why I consider myself a podcast advocate. But we don't. And the uncomfortable truth is that people outside of the industry just don't get it. And our industry is doing nothing to change that. They're keeping us there.
Interesting. Yeah. So, is that, do you think you'd get a talk at a podcast conference with that?
No way. No, not a million years. I am not waiting for my invitation to come speak at Podfest, for instance, because I'm going to say all kinds of stuff that the people who own that don't want to hear. They exist to make money off of us. Me. They don't want to hear anybody stand up and talk about why is it not okay for us to make money. It's okay to spend, not okay for us to make. And but hey, that's why I make my living talking to other podcasters and trying to lift them up. Because you have value. Everybody has value who has a podcast. You're putting your heart and soul into your thing. It has value, man, and you should be treated that way. And we're not.
Yeah, well, it does. My wife talks about how this industry is, kind of reminds of the gold rush kind of thing, right? It's the people with the axes and shovels that make the money, not the people doing the work, right?
Wow, that's a good analogy. I like that a lot. That's exactly the one selling the shovel made all the money. The guy mining for gold is, broke, right? Drunk on the corner.
Right.
100%, man. That's a great analogy. And that's really kind of where we are right now. Now, I think we're going to get out of it. I really do. There needs to be a movement for it. And I'm trying my best to grassroots the thing. But, everybody's afraid of the overlords. So,
yeah, we're not allowed to say the thing. I'm going to say the thing on this show. I think I've already been blacklisted by a few of those kind of entities.
I've heard some of your episodes, man. I'll bet that you're not getting an invitation to come speak at Podfest anytime either. Yeah. You and I could share a cab.
Yeah, it might not be the smartest business move I've ever made to do this show. We'll see.
As long as you're having fun.
Yeah, we're having a good time. All right, well, Rory, thank you so much for making time for our show. Tell us once again, where can people find you?
Best place to find me is on Facebook by my name right there on the screen, at Rory Paquette, RoryPaquette. Find me on Facebook because I'm old and that's where we hang out when you're my age. And message me, accounts open, find me. All my podcasts are there. Great place. See you then.
That's it for this episode of Monetize This. Remember, podcasting is weird. It's this medium where people pour hundreds, sometimes thousands of hours into something with absolutely no guarantee anybody will care. And then, if people do care, we immediately start trying to turn it into metrics and downloads and rankings and monetization strategies and top 5% badges and all the rest of it. And somewhere in there, it gets easy to lose track of why we started doing this in the first place. Anyway, if this episode made you think, I'd love to hear from you. And if you hated it, honestly, podcasting probably has a course you can buy about that too. This has been Monetize This. I'm David Beckmeyer. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.